Welcome back to everyone to our third official episode of Wavecast. I'm Andi here at the launch, and I'm here with Maria Halfyard, who's here to talk with us today about NATO Diana. Maria, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, no problem. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much. For those that aren't familiar, what is NATO Diana and what do the launch and the Marine Institute have to do with that?
NATO Diana is a program. Diana stands for Defense Innovation Accelerator for North Atlantic. They want to find and accelerate dual-use technologies. And what that really means is they want to look at what industry has, what the private sector has with regards to innovative technologies and what they're doing to in their own sectors and adapt that technology for defense purposes.
Interesting. Okay, so that's where that dual use comes in.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, after the Second World War, governments really started to reduce their R&D budgets. And then I guess with now the geopolitical tensions that are arising, they realized some of their government technologies weren't as advanced as some of the private sector. And of course, there's a lot of small, medium-sized enterprises that are young people are innovating, it's just accelerating. So how can they take advantage of that? They started this program so that startups and small companies can feed into the defense sector. And it's very, very hard. So if you're a small company and you want to sell your technology to a government, it's onerous. It's very difficult. Governments are risk adverse. You don't have the breadth and depth experience that other big defense contractors have. So NATO Diana provides that avenue to showcase your tech, to be mentored by Accelerator sites, be mentored by defense industry, and just be more visible. And hopefully that technology can be matured enough and tested so that it could be applied to a defense use case.
Really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
So a couple of questions that popped up for me right there is, first off, I'm really curious, do you know how they distinguish between these kind of smaller groups to help them get recognized?
Yeah.
Or
They put out challenges. So I think there was 8 to 10 challenges, and they could be from quantum technologies to underwater robotics to making critical infrastructure more resilient. So they put out all these challenges, and then companies from all the NATO countries apply and say, here's my technology. I think it can assist in meeting your objectives to enhance this area. And of course, they go through a rigorous evaluation process. And out of thousands of entries, they chose 150 companies to work on one of the specific challenges for this year. There's different challenges every year. So this year, there's 150 companies were chosen, 22 from Canada.
wow.
That's like a 15% acceptance rate, which is amazing.
Mhm.
And then these companies work with accelerator sites across the alliance. There are 17 accelerators within NATO Diana, 2 in Canada. Cove is the big one.
Mhm.
And then there's 180 test centers across the alliance. And these test centers, which the launch is one, is really there to help these companies test, evaluate, verify, and demonstrate their technology to the potential defense clients.
So how did the launch even get to be a test center?
Yeah,
for
we
Diana?
had to apply. So I was tasked to submit an application along with Kelly Santos, who's the director. And we basically said, okay, how can the launch and the Marine Institute as a whole assist NATO Diana's initiative? And because we're experts in the maritime sector, we're experts in underwater and surface vehicle, autonomous, semi-autonomous technology, we thought that would be a very good focus area to pitch to assist this NATO initiative. And we were successful. And, the launch was only a year old at the time, but we've had 60 years of experience. So we pitched it as, we have this building, we have all this technology, but the people behind it And the expertise that we've built up over the years is going to help these companies come in, and we're going to help them test and prove their technologies. For us, it's really about operating these technologies in harsh weather conditions.
Right.
If it can operate here, it will operate anywhere.
Sure, absolutely. So how is the launch becoming a NATO Diana test center affected, like, the day-to-day here?
I think it's definitely put us on the map. Yeah, we've gotten a lot of visibility.
Mhm.
It's also helping us position ourselves a little bit better with it regards to building a strategy around how we're going to organize our resources to assist in this program. We're obviously going to be looking at human resources, what kind of technology, but we've built here a maritime autonomous systems test bed we call MAST.
Mhm.
And MAST is really looking at how the evolution and maturity of autonomous systems will
Mm.
impact Canada's transportation system, its ocean sector, and the defense sector. So we kind of already had that concept built before we applied to the NATO Diana initiative, and people started to resonate because it's very timely. Canada's probably 10 years behind other nations in adopting autonomous, semi-autonomous technology.
Mm.
And as an institute, the largest marine institute in Canada, we thought, we can be that R&D arm of the government to be able to provide evidence-based research on how these technologies can be used safely,
Mm.
what purpose they can be used for, how that shapes regulation and policy,
Mhm.
how that changes skill sets,
Mm.
and how it's used within organizations. So it's kind of spans the gamut between, what technologies available, how people are adapting to use the technology,
Mhm.
and then how organizations and governments bring it into their organization. So it's kind of the first in Canada, and
Wow.
this mass test bed obviously has been instrumental in getting us noticed
Mm.
and being accepted into the NATO Diana program.
Wow, okay. So, have you seen, like, aside from NATO Diana as a result of it, have you seen kind of like the fruits of the labor, so to speak, showing up in other places as a result of, or maybe tangential to the visibility you're getting from NATO Diana?
Showing up within the institute?
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely. We're kind of all sharing the same message to wherever we go. So if we're going to Norway, the UK, we're spreading the message about MAST.
Mm.
And we're realizing that there's other countries doing some amazing things.
Mhm.
So we're gaining these really cool partnerships. We've partnered on different projects, but more on the international side. On the Canadian side, we've met with the seafarer unions because they're going to be affected. If
Sure.
these huge, large autonomous vehicles are coming in,
Yeah.
ships are coming into Canada. We've met with pilots, with government underwriters. So, like, the insurance and liability of these systems has to be taken in consideration.
Sure.
We've talked with Shipping Federation of Canada. And I think we're becoming the experts within Canada on how these systems are going to impact Canada.
Wow.
And so we're getting calls every day and saying, well, what's going on? Who's doing what? How can we be a part of this?
Mm.
Because change is coming.
Sure.
The lack of the reduction in the amount of seafarers in the world, the technology is there to be able to do this, and the business case is there. Like, it's going to be cheaper
Sure.
for companies to use autonomous systems.
Mhm.
Um, but the adoption with regards to how it fits within your organization, whether it makes sense, and how humans in the loop are affected, right? Like,
Sure.
humans have to use it. It basically is going to augment operations.
Mm.
So what's the human machine interface going to look like? So
Mhm.
there's so much research to do. Like, there's decades of research to be able to do
Yeah.
to perform on how these systems will impact Canada, because Canada is so unique. We're a maritime nation, but we have the Atlantic coast, and we have the Arctic, we
Mhm.
have the Seaway, we have the Great Lakes, we have the Pacific coast. Like, we're all very unique.
Mhm.
How are we each going to be able to use these systems to benefit the industries that are in these coasts, these
Mhm.
waters? So, for a specific use case, the ferry from Dartmouth to Halifax.
Mhm.
Does that need to be crewed? Could we reduce, crew and add more technology, maybe have a safety officer on board? Like, how is that use case applied? Uh,
Mm.
what is the safety, measures? What what is the public perception of that? Like,
Mm.
there's so much that we can learn from, like,
Mhm.
doing the research on this.
Right.
I think also, like, the oil and gas can use these systems
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
inspection. Yeah, there's so many different ways to use these systems and how to use them safely.
I think, like, one of the things that pops up when we're talking about, like, mast and these kind of, like, semi to autonomous systems is, like and, like, the public eyes, I can imagine a lot of people are, in some ways, very impressed by this new innovation, but also I imagine, like, a little skeptical for, like, the idea of that, like, "Oh, these are things that could be human jobs." Um, but then I don't know, but then it's like you need the people to make the technology, so then you have that in its own right. So it's a very interesting line that you find yourselves in front of. And like how do you imagine y'all are towing that line between kind of like the human
Yeah,
essence?
I think, information is a powerful thing, and I think the more information you have, the more evidence you have, that things can be done safely, efficiently. But you need to bring all these stakeholders in during the whole process.
Sure.
They need to be knowledgeable about what you're doing, what the objectives are, what the potential outcomes are, how are they affected.
Mhm.
So, we've been very instrumental in meeting with all the stakeholders in this area and the public to demonstrate, how we plan to conduct our research and our training on using these systems. And they all seem pretty supportive
Mhm.
because we're transparent. And I think you really need to be transparent and share the information. The university is all about knowledge generation.
Right.
Knowledge generation is not beneficial unless it's actually shared
Sure.
and people are reading it and learning from it. So I think that's really what our goal is, to be able to provide the learnings from what the research that we're gonna do on these systems.
So as far as like those systems go, like are there any particular projects that have come through here so far that or like that you can discuss that have been
Yeah.
that you think have been very like intriguing and
Well, NATO Diana's only like, I think they've only had 2 or 3 cohorts, so it's very young. So we have now, we're gonna be working with a company this spring who was in the cohort last year, and, their technology is, AI software to be used in cameras to be able to identify when people fall overboard.
mm,
That will automatically alert the master of the ship or whoever that there's a person that's fallen over. So it's great for cruise ships if there's someone fallen overboard, right?
totally.
Then they'd be able to do the search and rescue a lot faster. And also, the technology is used to be able to spot people in the water if you have an accident or people had to escape off a ship and they're in the water. The system is designed to have to be able to identify whether there's a person in the water compared to flotsam and jetsam that might be from the ship.
Sure.
And they say they're 99% accurate. And that's gold for search and rescue
Wow.
operators who really, because obviously the more time people in the water, the less likely that they might survive. So
Sure.
they've tested their system with the U.S. Coast Guard. They've been involved in a lot of NATO exercises,
Mhm.
but they haven't tested in harsh operating conditions like we have in the North Atlantic. So
Mhm.
they want to come here to test in fog. They want to use their system on an autonomous vehicle, which we have,
Mm,
because autonomous systems will probably be used a lot in search and rescue operations.
sure.
Um, and they want us to partner with the Coast Guard as well, which we're still working on. But the Coast Guard is very, very very good in partnering with us on research opportunities. So we're
Mm,
hoping to have them. And Xylem is their name. They're based out of Scotland, the UK.
mhm. Okay,
Yeah,
that's super
yeah,
interesting.
it is
Thank you.
interesting.
So you're talking about, like, the autonomous vehicles that we have here, and then, some of the other features of the area with our harsh seas and that sort of thing and environmental conditions. What other things does the launch or, like, this area have that make this center, like,
Yeah,
particularly
I
unique?
always say when I do tours here, we're a scientific playground.
Mm,
We have an ocean observation node on the bottom of the sea, around 4.5 kilometers out,
mm,
and that measures ocean data from temperature, salinity. It has acoustic hydrophones, so it listens. It has video. That data is streamed real time into the launch. So it provides like a ground proofing of exactly what conditions you're operating in if you're deploying underwater vehicles.
mhm.
We also have Smart Atlantic, which is going to be celebrating 20 years this year,
Oh, wow.
and that's a ocean observation system. We have, I think, a dozen or so ocean buoys around Atlantic Canada, and that captures real time met-ocean data. So, for instance, when you look at the weather, you go, okay, this is great, but if you drive an hour around the bay, the weather could be completely different. It could be fogged in. So
Mhm,
weather is very important for fishers, for oil and gas, for tourism. So having these buoys placed in strategic locations around Atlantic Canada provides them with more accurate data in the area that they're operating in. So they
mm,
can go onto our Smart Atlantic website and learn like wave height, wind, and all these specific conditions that they would want to know
mhm,
before they go operate in it. So it's just a little bit more of a detailed picture
mm,
before they operate. So it's been very successful,
mhm,
and that also provides more information for researchers and government to have to
mhm,
test here. Our Maritime Autonomous Systems test bed is also going to have systems underwater that can track vehicles' positions.
ooh,
Of course, AIS is technology that tracks vehicles on the water. All ships have AIS systems, so we know where they are at all times.
mhm,
We have a remote operations center here that will display all of this information
mhm,
on one operating display. So we can see the bay, we could see who's operating on the water, we can look at where vehicles are underwater,
wow,
we can know what weather conditions are in real time. So it provides an amazing situational awareness for anything that's happening in our test bed.
sure.
So for companies coming in, this is a prime spot to be able to test because we have deep water. It
Mhm,
goes from 3 meters off our wharf to 30 meters in the bay to 300 meters just outside. So,
jeez.
and we have ice conditions, we have high sea states, we have fog. Like it's yeah, scientific playground.
Sure. Yeah, it's you almost got me excited in my own, like, little scientific brain. It's like, "Oh, imagine all the things you could do with the different depths and"
There
oh,
is, and we've talked to government, and they're interested in doing some aerial, surface, underwater, research, with vehicles, all working in tandem
mm,
and providing that information, and if you're gonna work in the Arctic, we're the closest place to test before you go up there.
sure.
Right? Because
That's
it's very challenging to do testing in the north,
mhm,
just for infrastructure and communications. So if you can test here first, it gives you that little bit of um, a leap in how your operations will go before you get there.
mm,
But we can test, ocean technology, communications, human factors. Like there's so much the institute has. We have obviously our Center for Marine Simulation, which we're tying into this test bed
Mhm.
where we have the world's largest flume tank where we can test things in currents up to 2 knots. We
Mhm.
have an acoustics tank. And then not just us, we have partners down over the hill where we have, the National Research Council, who's also a NATO Diana test center, and they have ice tank, tow tank, wave tank.
Wow.
The university and the engineering have their own tanks. So, like, we are a city of tanks, which provides, it gives us obviously a little bit more to offer
Mhm.
to companies and governments to come in and say, if we can't do it, we know who can.
Right.
And you don't have to go far. We're a small place
Sure.
and we're tight knit. And we're also part of the International Association of Maritime Universities.
Mm.
We're probably around the top 10 maritime universities in the world.
Oh, wow.
So we're well known in our circle.
Mhm.
And that allows us to partner with a lot of other universities, but we also see what they're doing.
Mhm.
And so we don't really need to reinvent the wheel. Like we know the research that's happening in other places, but how can we take that data and adapt it to the Canadian context? Because we
Mm.
are different. Our operating conditions are different. We have huge coastlines. We have unmapped areas in the north. So how can we take the knowledge that our colleagues and friends all over the world are doing,
Mhm.
and use it for our benefit?
Sure.
So it's a small world when you really think of it, because we're part of this maritime community, and everybody is so they all have the same objective. We want to improve the safety and efficiency.
Mhm.
With regards to NATO Diana, we also want to improve sovereignty,
Sure.
right? So we're all kind of playing the same game and we want the same outcomes. So we all kind of work together.
Okay. I got you. So, like, when you're talking about sovereignty,
Yeah.
what do you mean by that?
Obviously, it's to protect our country, protect our critical infrastructure, protect our people.
Mhm.
And that's really, one of the I guess the biggest ways to do that is understanding who's in our environment,
Mm.
who could potentially be in our environment. And that's through surveillance and reconnaissance.
Mm.
Understanding who's in our water, like under the water.
Right.
Like underwater communication is still very sketchy.
Sure.
So, how can we develop better technology with industry and government to be able to hear things better and to relay that information in the north sometimes is sporadic because of connectivity. So how can we improve connectivity? So we're working with companies that have really, really cool ideas
Sure.
and they just don't have the space to be able to test it. But this is what we're for, right? So
Mm.
come in and test early, test often, fail to success. And that's really what we're here for. And we're kind of spreading that message.
Mm. I got you. That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fun because we meet some very, very interesting companies who are not just Newfoundland and Labrador companies. They're from all over the place, but some of them, they see their pathway to maybe helping companies in the fisheries sector or the oil and gas sector. But when we speak to them, we'll say, but we're also doing defense. Have you thought about defense? And they're like, no, haven't. Well, let me introduce you to this defense contractor, or let me introduce you to this government official, because
Mhm.
we think your technology has applications for our Navy
Mhm.
or other units of the Canadian Armed Forces. And this is what NATO Diana is for, right?
Right.
Taking technology that was initially designed for one purpose and adapting it to another purpose.
Sure.
And the government not doesn't always know these small companies. They
Mm.
don't know the opportunities. And we're kind of the convener of tech to defense.
Mm.
And it's going to be very powerful because right now it's really timely, and the government's very anxious to get their hands on some really cool innovative technology.
Yeah, I bet. And I remember earlier you were talking about how Diana is such a young thing, but have you seen any signs of the fruits of Diana,
Yeah.
like, coming to fruition at, like, a higher
Yes.
scale?
Yeah, some companies, have adapted some of the technology that come out of NATO Diana and have purchased some of their tech for, within their organization
Oh, wow.
to then, sell into the government of Canada or other governments.
No kidding. Okay.
It's working, and
Yeah.
really that's been the one of the biggest hurdles, I guess, for companies is, there's tons of government programs on how they can advance and accelerate their technology, but the pathway to commercialization, to actually get their technology in the hands of governments has been very difficult.
Sure.
I think this NATO Diana program and the way it's structured is providing that pathway. And I think, it's still early stages,
Sure.
but I think it's a much better program for companies to understand the defense landscape,
Mhm.
where their technology has to be. It has to be very resilient. It has to be cyber secure. It has to be fit for purpose. It has to be demonstrated. And so they're really buying into the tech, but they're buying into the company, the people, right? So
Mhm.
you kind of know the space you're operating in. And I think, we can also help companies navigate that space. But the NATO Diana program, of course, it's in 2 phases. So the first phase is, the boot camp, and they go to an accelerator. So Cove in
Mhm.
Halifax is one of those accelerators. And in those 6 months, they're mentored by defense, representatives, and they learn kind of the ins and outs of operating within the defense ecosystem.
Mhm.
Once the 6 months is up, then they apply for phase 2. Not everybody gets phase 2, but when you
Mhm.
get to phase 2, that's more of a path to adoption. So it's a really it's an ex this is where they accelerate. So
Mhm.
this is where they can come to test centers like us and really, test, verify, validate, demonstrate, certify, like, get their kit to a level that it can be used for,
Mhm.
military purposes.
Mm.
And once that happens, if you're a NATO Diana company, you're already ahead because
Sure.
people believing in you, you've been through the program, and it's almost like a rubber stamp to say,
Sure.
"Yeah, your equipment's good."
Wow.
So it de-risks the technology for
Right.
government adoption.
So, I guess one thing is that I think this is a phenomenal accelerator, Diana is. And so I guess, do you know how, because, Diana, of course, and NATO being very much centralized to the North Atlantic, do you know if there's any other projects that exist like this in other regions of the world, or like if there are plans
Outside
to?
of the NATO alliance?
Mhm.
I think they're similar, but this is such a large program. I think the other ones are very specific to their own country. Um,
Okay.
there's some in Singapore has some great ocean
Mm,
accelerators, and other parts of the countries. Korea as well. They invest heavily into their ocean tech industry. But this one is just made up of, NATO is what, 32 member countries.
mm,
That's that organization of having all of them perform
mm,
and participate into this program is it's a lot of work.
totally.
And they're doing a great job. They're doing 'em like, I've seen programs come and go. This one, I must say, I'm very impressed with how organized it is and how, well managed it is.
Mm,
And I think companies are really gonna benefit from not just the money that they're getting to improve their tech, but the mentorship
mm.
and just the connections that they're making is you just can't put a value on it.
Sure, absolutely. I guess one thing that comes up for me from that is, as we were talking about NATO being comprised of, some 30 something different countries. And so do you think, or do you envision that, because we're talking about like small, like Diana being very beneficial to smaller companies, but do you see it extending into those like countries that aren't known as much for like their technological side of things?
I think it'll be just for NATO
Mm.
countries, and
Well, yeah, but out of the NATO alliance, like those countries, like some that aren't as well known for like their technological
oh, for
innovation.
sure. I mean, this gives all countries
Mhm.
the opportunity to impress people with their innovative tech. Canada's known for ocean tech. Canada's known for AI, advanced manufacturing. So I'm not surprised that 22 companies were awarded this year, and there was a bunch last year as well. But yeah, I mean, innovators are everywhere. And I hope they all have the opportunity to know this is available for them.
Mhm.
And it just takes one opportunity and one idea to disrupt,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
the technology world.
No, absolutely. I think, one thing I'm very curious about is, what challenges have you faced, be it personally or as an institution, by becoming a test center,
Yeah.
for the launch?
I would say the biggest challenge for us is it's expensive to take people to sea,
Mm,
and I think that's a barrier to some companies to come in because they don't have that money. This NATO Diana program provides them money to come here, which is great.
mhm,
Um, but that might be out of the 150 companies that are awarded this test center might be only applicable to 5 or 10.
mm,
So for me, I think about what about all those other companies that never got accepted into this program?
right.
They're valid, they could have the next big thing.
Mhm,
Um, so what we're pitching now is to kind of duplicate this kind of program. We're working with some defense contractors and pitching to the government to be able to support these small companies with funding
mhm,
to be able to come in to test their equipment and to receive that kind of same mentorship that they're getting through the NATO Diana program.
mm,
So yeah, the challenge is NATO Diana. It's very close to obviously only a subset of companies
sure.
that probably only scratching the surface, right? So how can we support the other companies that haven't been accepted?
Mm,
And there's thousands of them. So
right.
I think what we'd like to do is be able to branch out and to be able to market that same service
Mm,
to those companies as well. And we're going to be looking to get them funding to be able to come in.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. I'm excited about it.
Wow, that seems like it'd be a very daunting task just, being in the science realm myself and, like, funding is one of the most limiting factors to all of this,
Yeah.
for sure. Is there anything else that you wanna talk about with NATO, Diana, and the launch, Marine Institute?
I think, the launch is in a very good position right now. We're needed.
Mhm,
The government um, is very excited about what we have to offer.
mhm,
And it's not just the testing ground that we're really pitching. It's the scientific like the university is an R&D facility.
mhm,
We have we educate young people.
mhm,
So it's also about recruiting people from high school to say, this is what's needed in the world right now.
mhm,
Why don't you adapt your psychology degree into helping this sector? Why don't you adapt some of your computer science, AI
mm,
degree into this sector? So we're trying to move people into maritime.
sure,
But because we're a university, we can provide these research programs where master's and PhD students can come in and really provide, brain power to support industry.
mm,
And then some of these PhDs might stay on to be academics, or they might be that feeder into supplying government and industry with human resources.
mhm,
So we're like a people human resource pipeline
sure,
for not just knowledge generation, but for future workers.
mhm,
And I think we can provide these young people with just a new opportunity to move their skill sets into maybe an area they never even would have thought of.
sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it's very interesting. Like, when you were talking about that, I was like, I think throughout this whole conversation, it feels like there's been, like, a reinvigorated sense of almost like the scientific spirit
Yes,
into play here, and
absolutely.
yeah.
And I think, small, medium-sized enterprises, they don't have a lot of money. They don't have a lot of R&D capacity,
Mhm,
but this is what a university's for. And there's so many other revenue streams within government to help these companies. We can be their R&D arm. you know,
Sure.
through our students, through our PhD students, through our postdocs,
Mhm.
through our professors, and even some of our technicians here. Like, we can help them accelerate their technology for commercialization.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Okay. Any other notes that you have that you feel like people would want to know or that you want to convey to the populace?
Well, we are still growing. So anybody that has an idea or they're interested in this area, they want to come work, in this area, come talk to us. We're open for business, and yeah, we entertain anything at this point. Yeah, we just yeah, we're here for the public. We're here for the students. We're here for government and industry.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maria. This has
You're
been a
welcome.
really informative conversation.
Thanks.
I love this show. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for listening, y'all. This has been Andi talking with Maria Halfyard here at the launch from the Marine Institute. Follow us on our socials on Instagram and Facebook and also at our website. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or you just have an idea that you want to learn more about, come reach out to us at wavecast@mi.mun.ca. And we look forward to hearing from y'all. Stay wavy, my fronds.